Hello, it is Friday. Welcome. My name's Bernadette. If you've never watched me before, I am a psychic, a spiritual mentor and teacher, and also a healer and guide. So I'm going to share this real quick while you guys are getting here. I'm doing this for someone specific, but I want to wait until she gets here. And so we're going to talk about how to handle, hi, Mandy. We're going to talk about how to handle the loss of a loved one, dealing with death, and shifting our understanding a little bit so that we can deal with it in a way where it's not so overwhelming, right? The loss of a loved one is never fun. This one's for Valkyrie, and my heart goes out to you, sweetheart. I know. When you first get the news, it's no fun, period, right? Hi, Sarah. Hi, Gabrielle. Hi, Bob. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Frederick. Okay, so did you get that book that I recommended, Valkyrie? For any of you who want to deepen your understanding in a really personal way, there is a book called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. The author is Annie Kagan, and she's like a really good writer. But on top of that, she walked away from her career when her brother died, and wrote a book about the afterlife, which is a really good book, and it's will help you understand on a deeper level what we go through and what those we love go through when they cross over, right? The last couple of years in my life has been crazy when it comes to getting news about people who've crossed over to the other side. But throughout my life, death has been something I've had to deal with and face. I mean, I'm a medium, so I work with those who've crossed over. And the first thing I want to tell you, if you have lost somebody or you're grieving somebody, is to give yourself the time to grieve. Okay. First and foremost, the first thing that happens when we find out, is shock. We go into shock. Like we don't want to believe it. We go into denial, right? Like it can't be true. And sometimes we go into anger, then we go into bargaining, and then finally acceptance. It might be the other way around. And for everybody, it's different. At first, though, that loss it hits us, and it is a shock to the system. But you have to give yourself time to grieve, and everyone's time's different. The more you understand what death is, that it really is just the end to one cycle and the beginning of a whole other cycle, the easier it is to accept that someone's crossed over, that someone's died, right? As human beings, we look at death as something that's final, when in fact it is the farthest thing from the truth, right? It's not an ending, it's the beginning. When my grandfather died, he was one of the first people that I began speaking to from the spirit world back in my 20s. I learned more about my grandfather when he was dead than I ever did when he was alive. It shocked me. And I had to ask my aunt about some things about him without like giving away what was going on, because during his funeral, he came through and was giving me the play-by-play because I decided not to go due to family drama and dysfunction. And boy, am I glad I didn't. But my grandfather showed up, and that was, it was interesting, right? I learned a lot. I knew the man growing up as someone who was sad, depressed, angry, had a temper, wasn't a lot of fun. I mean, I know he liked boys. I had no idea how he felt about girls. He really was always, and part of the Asian culture is anyways, like boys are better. But when he came through to me, I got to learn a lot about him and his life. I learned that he had a sense of humor. I had no idea that my grandfather had a sense of humor. But when he began speaking to me, he did in fact come through with a sense of humor. And he never went away. I mean, he had to go away at one point. The one thing my grandfather told me The first thing he said was, "Your grandma was right." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, she was right. God is real. I'm in school right now, and I'm learning a lot that I didn't learn while I was on earth." And this was right after his death, literally right after and during the time of his funeral. Um, and I was a little shaken up, because I did feel bad. I didn't go to his funeral. I felt better after I found out everything that happened. And in fact, a lot of the stuff he was giving me, the play by play during his funeral, I was living on my boat at the time, and he literally kept coming through, like popping in. And now this is going on and that's going on. I'm like, this is horrible. Why are you telling me these things? But it was a lot of unnecessary drama, people pointing fingers. I mean, two people ended up in a mental hospital because they're fighting with each other, that kind of dysfunction. So to have my grandfather at his own funeral and then narrating it for me like a referee was an interesting deal. I still hadn't accepted that I was a medium fully. But then afterwards, I talked to my aunt who did attend the funeral, and she confirmed not only what he was telling me was going on as it was going on, but also the things that I learned about him, that he was a super sweet man. Like everyone that knew him, I didn't know this about him. I was just a kid, and then I kind of distanced from my family. But he was a sweet man. He would do anything for anyone except family, maybe. And his anger came from a place of depression. And I began to understand that about him as he began to speak with me. So I'm telling you this because I want you all to understand death isn't final. It's final for our physical bodies. It's hard to accept when someone close to us or someone we care about dies and we know that we don't get to see them in physical form. It's never easy for us to accept that. Even if we're expecting them to die sometimes, it's not easy. But it's not the end, not even by a long shot. I mean, if you really want to think about it, you all were dead once too. And you have this lifetime now. It goes on, right? We come back and we experience new things in a different physical form. So although it's hard and painful to lose people that we care about, I will explain this to you all, and especially you, Valkyrie. When we hit that place of crossing over, a lot of times we know consciously before it happens, right before it happens, a week before, a month before, days before, we know, we can feel it. There's something about what's going on in our lives. We can feel it, or we start to get glimpses of beyond the veil. When you're older, as in the case of the elderly, a lot of times they're dancing in the middle on the other side before they even cross over. But at the time of death, especially for those who are elderly, they're ready. Their souls made that decision. They may not be conscious that they made that decision, but they actually chose to go. And what they see is unbelievably beautiful. I've had a couple of my own near-death experiences, and I can tell you, it's an amazing, you see colors that don't exist on this planet in third dimension. You feel the lightness and completion and love, and there's no lack when you're in the presence of being on the other side. When we cross over the veil, it is the most amazing, peaceful thing. I believe my dad knew when he was getting ready to pass. Honestly, people know. For those of you who've lost people to sudden accidents, unexpected death, traumatic things, suicide, I want to assure you these things too. They're not going to hell. The hell that we create, or the hell that people think about, it is created by our own limitations within our minds, in our belief system. I've brought through people who have committed suicide, and believe me when I say they're not in torment and they're not burning in flames. All right. A lot of the hell that we get stuck in, and there is a place of adjustment for those who actually believe they're going to burn in hell, that as they've made their transition and they've died, they haven't fully accepted that we are all going to return to the light of God, source energy, they will get stuck in a place where they kind of create this hell, right? So until we resolve and accept that we don't have to pay for whatever it is we think we've done in this lifetime, as soon as we have accepted we don't have to, then we get kind of crossed over into the threshold of the other side, fully embraced. And it's an amazing, amazing, peaceful, loving place. Very peaceful, no more pain. I've been there. Absolutely. And it's nothing like words can't describe fully. I can't articulate fully what that is. I mean, you have to experience it, but it's not a heaviness. There's no hurt, there's no pain, nothing. A lot of people that cross over, I just got done writing this in my book, towards kind of the end. One of the things that I've noticed with those who've crossed over, when they do come through and I do a mediumship reading, a channeling for someone who's passed over, they typically will choose a physical form or a light body when they come through most people somewhere between late 20s, mid 30s, the most I'd say 40s. They'll show up initially in the form of, like, if it's your grandfather, to where I can describe them and this is who they are. But then they take on the form of their body image that they were most happiest with in this life. Most of the people that have crossed over, even if they died in their 80s, will show up to me somewhere in their 30s, late 20s, when they felt the most vital, right? And their energy comes through that way as well. Unless, and I've done readings with grandmothers that come through still in the grandmother look, and the grandmother voice, and the wagging of the fingers, and the pulling on the ears, and the scolding to get their point across. But when you cross over, you get to take on whatever body form, body image that you felt the best. Right? I mean, I've had scenes come through with families and friends when I've done mediumship readings where, they're sitting around a poker table. Like the scene they show me is sitting around a poker table, playing cards, smoking cigars, and talking. I'm not saying they're doing that in the afterlife, but who knows? All I know is that's what they bring through. There is always this joyful feeling when they come through. Most of the time when I bring people through that have accepted their death and they've crossed over, they're joyful, they're loving, they're not in a place where they're carrying guilt and shame, although they will bring forth messages and apologize for things they didn't understand in this life. But we need to be happy when people are able to cross over and not be so sad. I know we have this thing when someone dies, whether they're young or they're old, and it's like, why did they have to go? It's the ones left behind that it hurts the most. It does not hurt them. I mean, they're still there. They can communicate with you at any given time. Valkyrie, I will tell you personally, like, at any given time you want to communicate with him, he will be there for you. He will be able to bring his energy forth. I've got an army of people who've crossed over that I get to visit with, and their energy's always there at any given time that I need it. We can speak to them at any time, but we shouldn't have, I know it's hard because we are attached to these physical bodies. We are attached to our physical lives. We are attached to things not changing. Hi, Carmen. But we have to accept our forms change when our job is sort of finished here, our purpose, our lessons, then we get to go. And in that place of going, it isn't anything but absolute freedom and liberation. This body, physical form, third dimension, is dense. When you have your dreams at night, right? and you're in control of them, like lucidly dreaming, you can do things like fly or think about somebody and just be there with them. That is what heaven is like. That is what the other side is like. You think and it appears. Right? Like there is absolutely nothing that stops you. You have ultimate freedom and you're reunited with your true self. There's no more mask of the ego. It doesn't present itself. Now, are there people that get stuck in fourth dimension and will not cross over all the way into the after? There are people who are earthbound, absolutely, and they reside in the fourth dimension. How can you communicate with them when they come back in a different life? That's a whole other conversation. Like I teach in Charm Life, I teach a lot about the multidimensional soul, and the over soul, because we all have an over soul, right? A part of us, our higher selves, no matter what life we're living, timeline we're on, there is an over soul for all of us, our higher selves that can be communicated with. So whatever your life you're in, you can. But there are times when we can't communicate with those who crossed over because they've got other stuff to do. Like it's not like you just cross over and there's nothing left to do. We are souls and expressions of God, and God wants to express and experience itself through us in its many forms. So there's other things we want to do, right? There's other people we want to visit. There's a freedom where we can go wherever and be wherever and feel wherever. It's amazing when we think about it, and it's so much more expanded. Doesn't mean that we should want to jump out of here before our time. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because you miss out on the pearls and the treasures that you are meant to experience here in this life. But when someone crosses over, when you lose somebody, I get the depth of the hurt, but it should be a celebration. It should be a celebration knowing that they can hear your thoughts, they can feel you, can talk out loud to them. They can still be a part of your life. You just don't get to physically touch them and feel them and see them. It took me a very long time, several years, to get over the loss of my dog, Shasta. And a lot of people, you may think like, well, it's just a dog, and other people understand what I'm saying. Shasta was more than a dog for me. Shasta became the mother energy in this lifetime that I never had. She became my nurturer. She taught me many lessons. Many of the lessons I teach you guys in Charm Life, Shasta was the one, my husky is the one that taught me. She taught me unconditional love. She was a rescue husky and was untrained. She couldn't walk on a leash. And as I helped her heal from her past, she became a mother spirit to me. That dog always knew. So when she died, I was devastated. Like, I don't think I got out of bed for probably a month. Furby, our little dog Furby, that's my dad's. I actually bought Furby right the same, about a day before. I brought him home the day before we put her down, and we had to put her down because she had throat cancer and she couldn't eat anymore and she couldn't swallow. She was afraid to go outside and she was in a lot of pain. But I couldn't bond with him because I was grieving her. And even though I understand these things, right, it doesn't mean that it didn't hurt. It's still that thing of, you're not going to be there when I need you. You're not physically going to be there to hold me and to cuddle with me, right? And that's what we miss. That's what we feel like we've lost, and that's what we grieve. We don't want to accept it. But I really do hope that if you can understand, death is a beautiful, beautiful, liberating event, and it really isn't finality. It's just a doorway into what's next. And our loved ones that have gone before us, they will be there when it's our time, and they will be here for us as we struggle, and all we need to do is either go into meditation to connect with them, or they'll visit you in your dreams, or just speak to them and you'll feel them. You'll feel their energy around you. The love doesn't go anywhere. If anything, it strengthens when they get to the other side, because the mask of the ego is removed on the other side. So there's that plus side too. It's like they aren't over there judging you. Trust me when I say they're not judging the choices you're making in this life. They're rooting for you. They're wanting you to get back to a place where you can feel the truth of who you are. So they're upholding you. They're up there rooting for you. They're up there sending you little signals. Don't go this way, go that way, right? They love you, and they always will. And it magnifies it when people cross over. Oh, you're welcome, sweetheart. I do hope that eases some of your pain, but nothing is going to ease it but time. And sometimes I would just ask when you go to sleep tonight that you get to have a dream and you get to have a conversation, that you get to visit with him. The other thing my grandfather told me, which was so cute, he kept popping in during his funeral. So obnoxious, and kept saying, I have to go. At the end of it, he kept telling me I have to go. And I said, where do you have to go? And I have to go to school. It's like a classroom. And there's things that I have to learn. And I was like, all right, but he spent a good couple of weeks with me, and I didn't see him again for a long time, until my uncle passed. And then I saw both of them, but I haven't really seen my grandfather. My grandmother on my dad's side, she's one of my guides and has always looked after me. So I get to see her a lot. And for that, I am very grateful. Shasta, I get to see every now and then now. For the first few years, she was there all the time. And I keep feeling like she's back. I don't know if she's going to come back for me or what, but I'll get a glimpse of her every now and then, feel her energy. But the first probably 6 months, we all heard her at the front door. We heard her call her. We heard her scratch on the door. We saw her appear. The kids did too. And I mean, it was like, wait a minute, was that real? But I think she just really wanted us to know she was okay. She was, and it was good to see her up and at the door waiting to go out like she used to, because at the end there, for her, she was a roamer. And when that dog didn't want to go out anymore, it broke my heart, because then I knew, like, this isn't fair to her. This isn't good. It's not kind. But she wouldn't, poor dog. She wouldn't leave me. She knew how much I needed her. And then finally we made a pact, and that was that. So, but it takes time. They're able to support and love you without the limitations of a physical body. And they can help many people at one time too. I mean, that's the great part, right? Like when you've crossed over and you're no longer restricted by time and space, they can be in one place and go someplace else just that quickly. They can appear in people's dreams in the same night. I mean, it's such a hard thing to grasp, really. That's why I want you to get that book and read it and a couple of times, right? You're going to learn that a lot of the things you've learned in Charm Life, they do talk about. She talks about it a little differently, or what messages she brought through from him talks about it a little differently. But it's a lot of the same things that I teach you guys. When I read that book, it was kind of a confirmation for me too, that like, yeah, all this stuff I've been teaching all these years and believing is right on. One of the movies that I would recommend for you, if you really want to understand the other side, the movie that comes the closest to what it is What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. That's one of the closest interpretations that I've ever seen. It's one of my favorite movies. And I think all of you should watch it. Literally, like all of you should watch it. It's a great movie. And I think it will give you a better understanding of kind of the transition that we go through when we're on the other side. And it covers suicide as well. It's an old movie. It is, I think I saw it on Amazon. So I think you can rent it, or it might be on Netflix. I have no idea. But I love that movie. When that movie came out, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Someone captured it, and the colors were beautiful. I actually hope they remake it and change it slightly someday, because that was one of the closest representations of what it's like on the other side, you know. So yeah, take ease, be at peace, know that your family. And for you, Valkyrie, your grandfather loves you. He's there for you. Oh, you watched it on Netflix? Is it on Netflix right now? I own a couple copies of it, but I should, yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time. It's a good movie. There's another good movie I watched, which is a very interesting one, right? It's called Every Day, and it's still playing, I believe, on Comcast, Epics or something for free. But it's an interesting deal because it's the spirit that inhabits. It's kind of like a walk-in spirit, which is again a whole other conversation for you guys. But I kind of think that like that's what they were portraying in this movie, and it's about this young girl, and she meets this kid and is going out with him, but this walk-in spirit, what I call a walk-in, inhabits the boyfriend's body for a day and falls in love with her. This spirit does. And then he wakes up every morning in a different body around the same age. And he'd been living that way since a child. Like he'd just have to switch bodies every 24 hours. He'd have to switch bodies, which made for a very interesting thought and conversation. Like, was it a walk-in? It opens your mind a bit and really kind of gives you an idea more so what goes on inside of people. It's entertaining, it's thought-provoking, but from the realm of spirit, it's just kind of cool too. If you're looking for something, yeah. I like What Dreams May Come, though, and it has a good ending. So no matter what it looks like while you're watching it, it has a great ending. So yeah. Hi, Beverly. Anyways, and there are orbs flying all over. I don't know if you guys are seeing them. It's crazy because I'm on Zoom, right? I do my Zoom classrooms. I do Zoom conferences a lot throughout the day with my light on. I don't get the orbs a lot. Once in a while, we'll get them in Charm Life. But lately, when I come on live stream, it's like orbs everywhere all the time. But I actually think that's Spirit's way of just letting you guys know, like, they're here for us. Just reach out and ask them. So I hope that helps. Do you guys have any questions? I wasn't sure today. I knew I was going to do a live stream. I couldn't nail a topic. Spirit wasn't telling me. They just said, you're going to do a live stream. I was like, all right. And then Valkyrie's in Charm Life, and she posted something, and it was like, you know what? That's the topic. Let's talk about it. I don't want you guys to be afraid of death. It's the last damn thing you should be afraid of. Like, seriously, it's the thing that you should be excited about, not afraid of. Death is not a scary thing. Life here on this planet is far more scary. But like I said, it doesn't mean you should run towards your death. Your soul wants to be here. You chose to be here for a specific purpose, and there is a blueprint available to you when you get confused. So don't get confused. Ask for help, look for solutions, and enjoy every moment of your life. None of us know how long we have. All of us know when we're getting, right before death. We all do have an understanding. And while it may not be fully conscious, today's my last day, there is a knowing at some level, and there's an acceptance. So really, though, we need to make the most of every single day, because none of us know how long we have, and you might as well make this right as good as you can and enjoy it. Forget about what anyone thinks. Forget about what anyone else's opinions are. They get to live their lives. That's their responsibility. You are here to live yours, and live it fully, and live it joyfully, and live it to the point where you have no regrets when you die and you hit that day. But for those who've already crossed over, be happy for them, celebrate them. I mean, my kids know when I die. Like I always joke about, when I know I'm going to die, I'm going to go to Hawaii, and I'm going to just get in the water and swim and become part of the food chain. And I'll wear a white dress, a white nightgown, so that I can become a legend, the lady in white, right? Like, you guys want to see me, don't bury me. I don't want any of that. I'm just going to go for a swim, a really long swim with the dolphins. And if you want to see me, go to the beach. You'll know where to find me. My kids are like, that's creepy, Mom. I'm like, seriously, I don't need to be buried. I don't need any of that, right? My sister told me 2 years before she died where she wanted to be buried. She died in her early 30s. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. I just did a reading for a girl locally here a couple of weeks ago whose partner died unexpectedly. But she said there's a couple things he said the week before, and it was like he was murdered. But there was a couple things he said the week before that made her think he knew at some level that he was going to be dying. And even that, like, we think that isn't a choice. It is a choice too. Like, we know how we're going out as well. So there's no mistakes. And I want to assure all of you of that. The time when we die, it's the perfect time. No matter how young, how old, how much we've done on this planet, how much we haven't. So I hope that helps. And yeah, I'm here for you guys if you need. And Valkyrie, I'm here for you. And you know that. I hope you know that. And you know that you can reach out anytime. Just deal with the grief. Don't get lost in it. Okay? Yeah, yeah. I know, Beverly. It's weird, though. I'm telling you, it's weird. And when I've channeled those who've crossed over, when I've done mediumship readings, all of them say the same thing. I knew. And there was no pain. No matter how traumatic, there was no pain. Didn't feel a thing. It was like going to sleep and waking up someplace else that's beautiful. That's what they all tell me. There was nothing. Felt completely fine. And that's the thing we need to know too. Like, especially people who are older or they're ill and they've been ill for a long time, they literally feel absolutely, there's no sickness, there's no pain, there's no want for anything. It's all good. So we have to celebrate that they are set free. Anyways, but in the meantime, when we lose someone, there is that getting used to it, and it's that place of just not being okay. It's sad, it's always a sad thing to think they're not going to be part of our daily lives anymore, but they still can be if we make them be. If we speak to them and know that they hear us, and know even if they can't physically answer us, if you just really trust in, they'll give you signs. They actually will. All right. I love you guys. I hope that helps. Have a good evening. She dropped her 7-year-old son off with my aunt that morning. It amazes me. It really does. It amazes me. The stories I've heard, the things I've seen. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. There's a lot of people that are afraid of death, and I don't understand it, except to say that they're very attached to their lives here. But on top of that, they just don't understand what death is. It's just a doorway, right? It's ending, and then you have a new beginning. It just opens the doorway back to a place where all is perfect. It's paradise. And you get to create that paradise any old way you want, which is even better, right? So yeah. All right, you guys, have a good night. I'll see you later, and have a happy weekend. Enjoy it. Oh my God, before I go, I just got to say, I've been praying really hard that the government would reopen, because I know some people personally involved in the shutdown, and they were stressing out. And it wasn't fun for them, but it's back open, and thank God they get their pay. Things can get rebuilt, and the infrastructure that was falling apart can be rebuilt. But I am so grateful, so grateful that everyone's going to feel that relief, and they can pay their bills on time and get food back on the table, and our air safety kicks back in. Super grateful. So I hope that you guys will join me in just really putting forth that energy of gratitude, because that was huge. I mean, it was really getting to be quite intense the last week. with everybody's energy kind of focused in on that. Now, it's relieved. So cool. Anyways, all right. Have a good night.